For your entire life, you have been measured by a metric that does not actually exist. They told you intelligence was an IQ score, a grade on a paper, or a degree hanging on a wall. True intelligence is leverage. It is the ability to impose your will upon reality before reality imposes its will upon you. It has more to do with survival than with the academic definitions provided by polite society. The great strategists of history understood this perfectly. While the masses were busy trying to look smart, a select few were busy becoming powerful. There is a hidden hierarchy to this cognitive evolution. At the very bottom is level 1, the sleeper. Roughly 90% of the population lives and dies here. A sleeper might be a doctor or code in Python, but they are functionally reactive. Their lives are a series of biological and social reflexes. The alarm rings, they wake up. The news anchor speaks, they believe it. The sleeper operates with an external locus of control. Everything that happens to them is the fault of the economy, the government, or their spouse. They crave consensus, needing to know what the majority thinks before they feel safe forming an opinion of their own. These individuals fill the space and make the noise, but they leave no mark. They act as the batteries that power systems built by much higher levels of intelligence. Occasionally, a sleeper begins to wake up. They realize the world is a game where intelligence acts as a currency. This realization thrusts them into level 2. We call this tier the mimic. The mimic recognizes that intellect buys respect, but because they lack original ideas, they must steal the minds of others. They repeat headlines from social media or quote philosophers they have never actually studied. At this stage, intelligence is a performance. The mimic is obsessed with the aesthetic of intellect. They collect certifications and titles like shiny stones, seeking the applause of the intellectual class they wish to join. This is a dangerous trap for the ego. The mimic falls into the Dunning-Kruger effect. They feel superior to the sleepers, knowing just enough to think they are an expert, but not enough to realize how ignorant they truly remain. Machiavelli warned of those who mistake the appearance of virtue for virtue itself. Because they can only copy and cannot create, the mimic becomes rigid and aggressive when challenged. They are incapable of surviving outside of pre-built arguments. When you stop performing for others and start observing reality as it actually is, you reach level 3, the calculator. Machiavelli referred to this as the fox. This marks the first level of true agency, where a person realizes that social contracts and morals are arbitrary rules meant to be bent. Level 3 intelligence is transactional. The fox understands incentive structures. They look at a boss or a partner and ask, what do they want, and how can I use this? They climb corporate ladders by maneuvering the smartest, rather than working the hardest. Viewing every interaction as a transaction makes the fox paranoid. They begin to view people as chess pieces. They project their own cunning onto the world, assuming everyone else is a calculator too. To rise higher, you must add the element of will. Level 4 is the operator, or the lion. While the fox navigates the world safely, the lion shapes the world through sheer force of personality and execution. The operator thrives in conflict. They are the visible leader who steps to the front and accepts the burden of responsibility. They make the hard decisions that the sleepers, mimics, and calculators are too terrified to face. Yet both the fox and the lion have limits. The fox is trapped by their own isolation. The lion becomes a massive, visible target. Their power relies on physical energy, making them a servant to their own ambition. The deepest waters of intelligence operate out of sight. Level 5 is the puppeteer. The lion relies on visible force, but the puppeteer masters invisible influence and soft power. Instead of giving orders, the puppeteer engineers situations. They understand that humans are driven by desire and fear. By setting the right conditions, they make their targets want to take the exact actions the puppeteer desires, leaving the targets feeling like they made a free choice. The puppeteer is a shapeshifter. They operate through intermediaries, using the lions and foxes as their limbs. If a project fails, the puppeteer's name is nowhere to be found. They maintain absolute plausible deniability. Level 5 carries a heavy cost: disassociation. When you treat every human interaction as a psychological operation, you lose the ability to connect. The puppeteer walks through the world as a detached ghost. Many believe this is the peak of power. But despite holding manipulative control over the pieces, the puppeteer is still playing a game that someone else designed. The architect designs the casino, allowing everyone else to play inside it. This is level 6. The architect controls human behavior through environmental design. They create the systems, ideologies, and algorithms that dictate the actions of the lower levels. This requires systemic intelligence. The architect thinks in decades and centuries. They are detached from the outcome of individual skirmishes because they have already rigged the war. Reaching level 6 requires abandoning personal glory. You must become a student of civilization, weaving economics, psychology, and history into a single tapestry. The architects are the names that survive history, but they remain vulnerable because their ego is still attached to the survival of their creation. If their system collapses, they suffer. Level 7 centers on subtraction. It is the void. Achieving this level is not about adding more power, but letting go of the self entirely. The void is a state of internal detachment. By aligning with Fortuna, the unpredictable flow of fate, this person stops fighting the current and becomes the current. A person without ego has no leverage points for others to grasp. There is no desire to exploit, no pride to wound, and no attachment to survival to use as a threat. When you require nothing from others, you gain a unique form of command over every interaction. You become a mirror, reflecting whatever the other person projects until they defeat themselves. Machiavelli described this as virtù, a flexible, ruthless prowess that ignores conventional morality. Moving into these tiers requires abandoning the social conditioning that prioritizes safety and being liked over being effective. Consider where you stand. Moving from level to level requires stripping away illusions. Only when the game no longer matters do you truly control how it ends. You find the only thing that remains: power over yourself.